Hi, and welcome to the first in my series of spooky Halloween videos. I don't actually know how spooky they're going to be, but I'm going to do my best. Okay, so I'm going to turn on my cat. There she is. So I told Steve I was going to do these spooky videos, and he was like, you definitely need a decoration. Because if you've ever been to my house around Halloween, you know that it is a Halloween nightmare before Christmas explosion. It's everything. So we have all these little blow up, whatever you call these things. I think they're called blow molds. Anyway, so this is one of them. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, this is the spookiest thing I could think of today, and it's actually not that spooky. It's actually kind of an amazing thing that can happen, but it actually can be really scary, especially if you don't know what's happening. What I was going to talk about today is moon stuff and crisis of meaning in particular, which another name for crisis of meaning, we've heard crisis of meaning before, and some of you might have heard dark night of the soul. So one marking that I'm first going to show you before I get into the aspects of dark night of the soul and identifying if you've had it or not had it, it's not a disease, if you've been in it or if you're experiencing it now, so you can look for yourself. Okay, so there are fingerprints that can show up in your hand, in your palm, and they're called dermaglyphs. And one of them, well, this is a whirl and this is a loop. Let's just look at both of them. So whirl is circle, and it has, this one doesn't show it that well, but it has two little triangle things down at the bottom called triradius. And on a loop, it just goes up and over. It would just have one triradius over here. So up and over like a wave or a swirl. You don't have to get as technical as I am. They teach us these things because we have to know all the little nuances and subtleties and ins and outs of everything, right? When you're a hand analyst. So if you have in this part of your hand down here, one of the two fingerprints I was talking about, so you could have a loop. It could look like this, right? This one's really big and exaggerated. You might have a loop. It could look like that. Or you could have the whirl version of what I showed. Just check that moon area. It's actually really common. It's more common for people that get a hand analysis because they're moon type people. They're people that are interested in intuitive arts, things like that. They typically have a very open mind because that is part of their life purpose or their life lesson, whether it be a loop or it be a whirl. It puts it in the category of being very important to their soul picture, right? And this indicates that they are a spiritual teacher. Okay. Another thing that can be in the moon is a star. So star, this one star has many points, but you can see if you have a star, similar thing, the spiritual teacher, right? And I'm not as much going to go into the upside of the spiritual teacher today. I'm going to go into the learning potential side of the spiritual teacher, which is actually, I think, really beautiful. Because what can happen is, and this can happen to anyone across the board, it does not have to mean that you have these markings. These were just interesting things that I thought you would enjoy finding out about the moon, okay, part of your hand, which is all about intuition, creativity, spirituality, and imagination, okay? So if you have experienced what I'm about to talk about and you don't have these markings, that's okay. This can happen across the board to anyone, of course. So I'm going to talk about crisis of meaning and dark night of the soul. And as I'm going along, my question for you is, have you ever found yourself in a crisis of meaning or dark night of the soul? What can it feel like when you find yourself in a dark night of the soul? It can feel like disillusionment, disappointment, depression. I call them all the D words, right? Down in the dumps. You can find the things that were working for you in your life are suddenly not working. So maybe you at one time had a job, it was working for you, things were going good, and suddenly it just wasn't working, it just didn't feel right, or maybe it just doesn't feel right. That could be your experience right now. It feels like something's missing, like there's something maybe that you should be doing, but you're not sure what it is. And so you're kind of just in this in-between place. And that's where the crisis of meaning takes you. You start to experience a breakdown in your belief system. So the ego in order to take you to the next place where you're going to go, the crisis of meaning is very much a transitional place. The ego has to break down in some ways. So old beliefs, old patterns, things like that have to fall away. And so that can cause some of that sadness, because when that happens, it can create a grief inside of you, because it can feel like your whole world is turning upside down, first of all. And then sometimes that part of you, you're grieving the loss of those parts of you, right? Like if you had a belief and you held on to that belief for a very long time, it really feels very important to you. And new truth may present itself and you may clearly know, yeah, that's not true. I held on to that belief. And typically the reason we hold on to beliefs is to keep us safe, right? They're always, not always, but they're like 97% about our own safety, right? And so when we realize they weren't true, we can go through a grief process, and it can feel, and it's very cleansing and purifying actually, but it can feel like your whole world is falling apart. Like my hand analysis teacher the other week, I love how she described it. She said, it's like we each have a rock of belief that we're holding on to, right? So imagine you're holding on for dear life to this rock, and then suddenly someone moves your rock. And you're just sitting there like either in free fall or having nothing to hold on to, right? And that is incredibly scary. And a lot of times as a hand analyst and a intuitive coach, I'm with people in those moments when their rock is moved, right? And so they have to create a new belief that is in alignment with who they are now and where they're going. So that's number one. So number two, I touched on this, things are not working or not as fulfilling as they were to you before. They may not be making you happy anymore, and you might feel like you need to totally change things up in your life, change your career, change your job, change ways that you were functioning in relationships that weren't healthy, that maybe you didn't even realize, right? The rock can come up there, and suddenly you're going, why was I giving my power away all the time in this scenario? And that's not working anymore, right? So lots of things can come up that need to be looked at and readjusted. Number three is you might have a lot of new realizations, like about things that you were told that you felt were true, and then you realize that they weren't true. And these could have been things you were told all your life as a child, right? Like this is this way. And then you can have that breaking down of that belief. And so this can be an incredible disorienting process. Like disorienting is the best way I describe it, because you're not fitting in with your old life anymore. Your soul is up leveling to the next level of your life, but you're not quite there yet either. I know if you're in this human experience, you've probably had at least one or two of these experiences in your life, if not right now, at some other point. And so you're not quite your new life either, right? Because the ego is going through its process of cleansing and, releasing the old programs that were working for you before, but are no longer going to be working for you at the level that you're moving to. Okay. So it's kind of like no man's land. It's like an in-between place. It can feel a little bit like free fall. That's how I describe it. Like you're just falling, and hoping that you get a soft landing, right? So my advice around this is definitely don't resist the process, and don't rush it either. Allow all the juiciness of this process, because it's so important. So allow all of this to happen and unfold and unravel, because the more you allow and the less you're resisting, actually the easier you're going to make it for yourself. And the better things are going to be and the faster too, you're going to reach that next level of being, which is where your soul is attempting to take you through going through this dark night of the soul process, right? So the more you can be open, the more you can be out of resistance around it, the easier. So the number one thing for that is be flexible with what you believe, so that you can be ready for when you realize that you've held on to an unhealthy, limiting belief for a long time, that you have an easier time saying, oh, all right, well, I'm ready to let that go. And then you don't have to experience as much trauma around that Now, Meow Meow wants to say hi. This is Willie. He likes to come do videos with me. Number 2, I would suggest finding a mentor. That's what I did when I found myself in my crisis of meaning. Was it 4 years ago now? I found myself in a deep crisis of meaning 4 years ago. I knew that my career that I had chosen for many, many, many years was not going to work for me anymore long term anyway, and that I needed to start finding myself a new career that was in alignment with who I was becoming, because I had outgrown that particular career. Even though I loved it at one time, it was in perfect alignment for me. At one time, it no longer was. And this can happen really suddenly for us, right? So I looked for a mentor, and I found my hand analysis teacher, and she's amazing. And I still work with her on lots of things. And that got me on the path of moving from where I was to where my soul was trying to go. And then third thing is be as open as you are able to what's coming next, to the opportunities, to the ideas that present themselves, because a lot of times where your soul is wanting to take you might sound a little bit crazy, right? To you right now, from the perspective you're looking at, you might say, you might get an idea about something, or and it kind of intrigues you, but there's that other part of you, the ego side, that might say, oh, hey, no way. No way. Like, you might have an idea, you might suddenly have a vision of seeing yourself speaking on stages, and you hid anytime anyone asked you to do some public speaking. and all of a sudden you go, no way, that is not where I'm going. That isn't even possible. How could that be possible, right? So just be open to where your soul is trying to take you, because what can happen is, as soon as you let go of that rock, you can try to grab another rock of, to stuff another rock of belief in where the other one was, so that you have something to hold on to. But try to be as open as you can, right? And so, yeah, I'm trying to look and see. I took a couple notes on this to make sure that I hit all the points. I think I hit everything. So I hope that you're having an amazing October. I love this month, and finally got my Halloween town all set up. If you're interested in hand analysis, or think it might be a fit for you, if you've experienced any of the things I talked about today, or you just feel that you have a general pull or curiosity toward hand analysis, please message me and we can talk about what the options are there. Have a fabulous, fabulous day, and I will see you for the next one in my spooky series. Who knows what it's going to be? It's going to be super spooky. All right, bye.